God! Yeah, that right there spooked the frick out of me. I don't know if you can see the goosebumps or not. Whew, but they are, look at them. I can see them in the camera. Whew. I thought I was all alone. Damn. Whew. Hair on my neck is standing up. Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are in a house that I'm going to do a side job on. Thank you, Nick, for letting me do this in your house. I really do appreciate it. Let me just go ahead and tell you what's going to happen here in this house, and we'll get started pretty quick. If you don't want to listen to some of the things that I'm going to say, then there will be timestamps down below for you guys just to go ahead and bypass it all. Now, nobody's living here right now. This gentleman, Nick, has bought this house. We went through it with a fine-tooth comb. A plumber came over here that I know very well, and myself, we came over and we looked at everything. Now, I have been in this house prior to my friend owning this house. I knew from years ago that there was some issues. There was knob and tubing. There was a fuse panel in the stairwell, which I'm going to show you guys. This is kind of going to be informative on the what you should and shouldn't do when you buy a house. This is my opinions, of course. I would always hire somebody that knows, an inspector, or somebody that does home inspections, because you want to make sure that you're buying a good solid house. Now, luckily I've been an electrician for a long time. I've been in many homes. I know kind of what to look for, at least on my end, and pretty much, termites and stuff like that. So anyway, always good to get your hands in the house before you buy it. So like I said, if you're not interested in listening to any of this, definitely check timestamps down below, because there will be some stuff that you probably don't want to listen to and some stuff that you do. So let's go ahead and get on in here, and I want to start talking to you a little bit about what you should look for when you get a new house. And just because your home inspector is inspecting it doesn't mean they're going to catch everything, because they inspect a lot of stuff, from the foundation to the plumbing to electrical, so on and so forth. So you definitely want to make sure that you stay tuned, watch this, ask questions. You can ask me, you can ask anybody that knows anything. Make sure you get a very reputable person, whether it's a plumber, electrician, carpenter, or whatever, to go over your stuff. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now, excuse all of the dogs barking and everything, but I want to go ahead and get on the steps here, and I want to show you something right here. Smoke detectors, guys. It's very important nowadays, or anytime, that you buy a house, that you definitely 110% make sure that you definitely make sure that the smoke detectors are all interlinked. If not, I would suggest you telling the homeowner, and this is just all my suggestions, what I'm going to tell you. So if it was me, this is how I would approach this. If this smoke detector was all by itself, tell them, I wish they were all interconnected, so when you pushed one or one went off, that they all would go off. Now, luckily, this house was rewired, and it was rewired pretty good, almost pretty good. This smoke detector right here is interlinked with all the rest of them. So, you need one at the bottom of your steps, one at the top of your steps, which you'll see there's up there. We're going to go up and I'm going to show you. I literally, like I said, went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and smoke detectors is a good thing to look at for 100% fact. You want to make sure that they are interlinked if possible. If not, you're going to have to tell them, maybe I want to knock some money off because I'm going to have to install them. So you can drive that price down. If you're asking $300,000 for a house, well, now you might add, $1,000 or $2,000, whatever you think it might be. You definitely want to ask somebody that does this how much it would cost, and then say to the realtor, hey, I'm going to have to do this because I don't feel safe. Can we knock the price down a little bit more? So as I go, I'm not going to give you any estimates, because wherever you are in the country, they're always different. So smoke detectors, I think, is 100% fact. You should definitely have. That's my opinion. Now, as we move here into the kitchen, this is one of the main things that you definitely want to 100% look at, okay? You definitely want to make sure that the receptacles are GFI protected in a kitchen. I don't care what anybody tells you. This is a safe spot. This is where you need to make sure that everything from your island to your countertops is all GFI protected. I've been in this house before he bought it, and I went through and I showed him what was and what wasn't GFI protected. There are certain things, but as the code reads, if there's no ground, because I have a little GFI tester, which we're going to go over here very shortly. If you go there and there's no ground, well, obviously you can put a GFI in this place and it basically satisfies the code. There are some things here that we're not going to be able to do that with, which we will get in later. This is the main part of the video I want to get out near the end. So like I said, if you're still following along, the end part of the video is going to be the best. But the kitchen is 100% needs to be safe because you don't want to have any issues anywhere. All right, so this is a half bath right off of the kitchen. And as you see right here, it says no equipment ground. Now this is an important sticker to have because it tells you that there is no ground in here. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is what I like to call my GFI outlet tester because that's what it is. We call it monkey on the street. You put it in and you see, you probably won't be able to see because it's really, really bright in here. Let me see if I can make it darker and show you. There's only one light lit up right here. So that tells you, if you look at the thing, it says open ground. Now, they have satisfied this code by putting that sticker, no equipment ground, on here. And I'm going to show you that when you plug it in, you will not be able to trip this out. I don't know if you guys can see, but the light is coming on. It's definitely not going to trip, but it does satisfy the code. Now, this is safe. This is what you want if you do not have a ground here and you don't want to rewire your receptacle. So, and one thing I'm going to say, this is my personal opinion. Leave a comment down below. Guys, tell me what you think. You see these screws, how they're like this? I hate that. I like them straight up and down. That's just my opinion and my preference, but this is a lot of houses I go to that they do this. The only thing I like is if they do this here, they should do it all throughout the house. So one thing I do want to show you though, it will test. You could probably hear it clicking, lights off. And it does reset. I can't do it in front of the camera, but there we go. All right, it's back on, but still no equipment ground, so you got to keep that in mind. Let's move on back into the kitchen. I want to show you something else in here. All right, so over there we do have a GFI. It is countertop protected. So I'm going to go ahead and plug my monkey in here, and we're going to see how many receptacles this actually trips out. Now, they got two lights on here. Let me bring you a little closer so I can show you. So this one is correct. We'll go ahead and trip it out. All right, that tripped out fine. And as you see, there's no more countertop receptacles here. So just so I'm not going to go into any codes, but there probably could be another one. And if you were already doing this, I think I would have put it more center of this versus closer to the oven. Now, let's go ahead and look at these other receptacles and talk about these. Now, you see these two over here. Now, this is still in the kitchen. I'm literally only less than 4 feet away from, actually probably 4 foot away from the oven. And you see I tripped that GFI and there's still power here. And you can see it's only one and it's not going to trip anywhere. Now there's only one other GFI in here. And see, I don't know if you can see it from here, but the only other GFI is on the island. And when I trip it, it does not trip these right here. These should be on a GFI because they're in the kitchen per code. And then you have the countertop over here, which has 3 receptacles, which is perfect. Let's see if they are GFI protected. All right. They're hot. They're correctly wired with no protection. Now, kitchens always have to be, the whole kitchen has to be GFI protected. It's a countertop. It's near water, so it has to be protected. And I have tripped every GFI out, and none of these, let's see this one first, before I say none of these. That one only has one wire, no ground, so it should say no equipment ground. This one, same way, one wire, open ground. So that tells me that we need to fix this, and I'm going to show you guys at the end of this video how to fix this. I guess I would say the most cost-efficient way to do this would be to, well, stick around and you guys will find out. So the new code reads that the refrigerator should be GFI protected. Now, I'm not going to get into what I think about that, but let's see if it is. And it is not. It doesn't even have a ground here. That, to me, 100% is not okay. That, at least, minimum, should have a ground. It will have a GFI when it's all said and done. Now, this one, I may just have to put a GFI here, because at the end of the video, like I said, or near the end, I'm gonna show you how to fix the problem. We're gonna talk about it in great detail. This is where the refrigerator sits, and that is the water hookup. Now, I will say that at least it has a cutoff. It should have been cut in the wall, because this wall was open at one time. But that's just me. So let's move on. Okay, we're in a little, I guess you would call this the keeping room. There's right off of the kitchen. It's basically like a little sitting room. I've learned all these terms from rich people. And I didn't know what a keeping room was, but now I do. Back in the day, this was actually the dining room. And it may be the dining room now. I don't know what my buddy has plans for this. But let me just tell you something. There's very few receptacles in here. They can be added at any time, of course. But when you are debating with your realtor saying, well, I wish I had this, I wish I had... Some things you can't say, well, there's only one receptacle in here, so I have to knock another 10,000 off or whatever, because you can't do that. So you just need to make sure that when... I mean, you can try. And I would try everything, because you want that house to work for you. You want to make sure that you get the best price. So there's a few receptacles in here, and none of these have grounds in them either. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to fix this later. So you definitely want to just keep watching this. This is, I wish there was a video here when I was young and I was buying a house, because I wish I knew things like this. So anyway, let's move on. This is the dining room or keeping room, and there's just a few receptacles in here, and all the switches work. You want to make sure everything works. You want to make sure the receptacles work. You want to make sure the switches work. You want to make sure that there's nothing flickering when you turn the lights on, because it's important. Just because somebody put a new switch in doesn't mean they rewired the house. Like this one, they rewired the house, but they were fortunate to tell me and the homeowner that it was only 80% rewired. And they were true, and I've checked, and that's about right. So let's move on to the living room, where TV would be in, I guess, basically the living room. So let's go check it out. All right, so we're in the living room now, and you see it's a pretty wide open living room. We want to make sure that the ceiling fans work, and you see that they do. The switch works for them. If they're on remote, the remote works, because you don't want to buy something that you already have to start fixing. It doesn't make any sense. So you want to make sure that you check every switch. If you don't know where it goes, you need to ask, where does this go? Why is it there? Why is it not working? What does it go to? That's important. I don't know how many times I've been in people's homes that they've said, there's a switch in the wall and I don't know where it goes to. And my first question was, did you ask when you bought the house? And they said, yeah, they didn't know. Well, that's not good enough. You need to figure out why and where it goes, because why is it not working? Is there something wrong? Is there a light or fan or something not going on? You can see these fans. Well, there's two. I just turned the other one off so there was no chopping effect when I was talking. They all work. Now, let me show you something about this living room that obviously was one of the first things I found that was wrong. Okay, so we come to this receptacle and we see that right there, one light, which means open ground. It's not going to do anything. But they have a junction box here, so what happened? So what they did is they didn't like the receptacle here, so somebody cut a receptacle in here, and they didn't have a ground. So what needs to happen here? Well, you have to stay tuned to the whole video to figure out how to fix this. You can't just put, my thing is this, you can't just put a duplex receptacle in here like this when there's no ground. That is against code, 100%. I got a video, well, luckily this didn't happen here, about a bootleg ground. You do not want to have that on any receptacles. And luckily, even though they did rewire, because there's a little box here that used to be a receptacle, and they moved it up, they didn't bootleg the ground, because they easily could have, and then nobody would have knew. But they were honest, and they did it the right way, almost. So we're going to show you later in this video how to fix that so it's safe. And if you see throughout the house, there's another one over there. It's the same way. They got a box covered with a blank, and then you put a receptacle above there. And the same with that over there. Right before you go up the steps, same way. You can see that receptacle is very old, and I know for a fact there's no ground. I can put it in there. I can show you no ground whatsoever. So you want to make sure that you check each and every single one of them, because it's very important. Let's go ahead and go on upstairs. As we come upstairs to the first landing, this house has 3 floors. We want to make sure that, same issue, is there arc fault breakers in here? Now, I will say in my locality, if you're not rewiring, you do not need arc fault. Now that's eventually going to change, but I have a lot of people telling me, oh, you know, you're not doing it the right way. Well, depends on what you're doing. Now, if this wall was ripped out and you're redoing all these receptacles, this wasn't like this when they did this. I was here when they rewired most of it. Not actually here, but in the area, and they didn't need it. Code says you do if you're doing new homes in my area. That's the way we abide by it. I know that's very debatable, but if you go trying to break these circuits up, you could have an arc fault here, and this may feed a bathroom. I don't know, you don't know unless you really dig into it. And unfortunately, that's the way this is. These bedrooms are not on their own circuits. They're with lights, they're with a bathroom receptacle. So I know for a fact that this was okay to be grandfathered in. Now, you could put a GFI in here if you wanted to, you know, a GFI breaker, but we just, right now, in 2023, the new code, our inspector doesn't require you to have arc fault if you're just basically rewiring a home, and it's, like I said, with your bedrooms, with smoke detectors, with, you know, a light outside, with your bathroom. You don't know, because a lot of this may still be old wiring in here, and it probably is. But you want to take your monkey, and I'll leave a link down below where you can buy this. This one, I'm gonna tell you, for $9 or $10, $12, whatever it costs, is a lifesaver when you're going to buy a home, or even if for a homeowner. I would just buy one, because it will tell you so much information, so much information. Now, I do have an arc fault tester also, but I know there's no arc faults breakers in this panel whatsoever. We're gonna go look at the panel last, but this is 100%. So we need to look up here and see. I'm making a list of what I need to do to tell you at the end of the video how to fix the no ground. So let's get in here and let's see if there's grounds in this bedroom. We'll go to the next bedroom, and the bathroom. All right, here comes the first receptacle. Let's see what happens here. And it may be rewired, and it's not. It only has one light, so that tells me that circuit is an old circuit. And there's a lot of echo in some of these rooms because there's nothing in here. So, and I believe that is the only receptacle in this house. This house is very old, and I'll show you at the end of the video, so you may want to stick around because there's something pretty awesome in this house. But anyway, stick around. One thing I do before I leave, I want to show you. You see this smoke detector? Now, there is a code. There is a dead space. And if I'm right, you've got to come off this wall at least, I believe it's a foot, because you'll have this air gap in here. And if I'm wrong, I will definitely leave that code or the NFPA where it says it in their little smoke detector packet. That is too close. Will it work? Sure. But what happens is, and I'm not no inspector, I'm not no whatever, but the smoke will come up and it'll roll, and you'll have that dead space there. So you'll have a whole room full of smoke before that will be set off. But my point is, at least it's there. Right on the other side, the code is smoke detectors in each bedroom and one outside the bedroom. So if you have, like this, for instance, there's 3 bedrooms right here. There's one smoke detector outside. That's all you need. It's at the top of these stairs also, so it kind of serves the purpose on both. So let's go out here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, right there's a smoke detector. It's also at the top of the steps. I'll show you. There's your steps. Now there's another floor above here, which we're going to go to here in a minute. That is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have one outside the rooms, and that right there, at least in my area, the code, well, the inspector will allow that, because it's, even though the rooms are further away, you see here's one right over here and one right behind me, it's still up here, outside of the room, so it serves the purpose. So we'll go in here and we'll look in here. So I'm not real sure if you saw downstairs the plate. See, this was the receptacle. They moved it up here. And let's see. And this one's not even on, which is definitely not a good thing. Let's go see if it's on the switch. I doubt it is, but we'll see, make sure. Let's see. Yep. Now this is a switched receptacle, guys. You saw the light come on, I'm certain. Now that is unfortunate. Maybe have to be fixed later on. There's actually another receptacle in here. So let's go over here and see if this receptacle is switched also. All these things I'm showing you guys need to realize, okay, that this is stuff you're gonna have to fix when you buy your house. All right, now that light is on. I'm gonna flip the switch over here and see if it goes off. All right, so that's still on. So the only switched receptacle is that one over there. So is that a big thing? Maybe. It depends on how you feel. A lot of people back in the olden days, like this house, they would have a switched receptacle. So when they came in, because there was no overhead lighting at that time, they would have a lamp and they would just switch it on. That's the way this house used to be. And then of course you have your smoke detector up there again, so you can see it. It's in every room, which is good. You definitely want that. Okay, so what I'm gonna show you next is something that I think is pretty freaking phenomenal. Now this is not a bedroom. This has one receptacle in here and it doesn't have a ground in it. But this right here, guys, is pretty fantastic. Now, I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like. I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod, bring it out here because you just need to see this. It's pretty awesome, guys. All right, I know the lighting's terrible because there's a lot of lighting coming through here, but this is like a little balcony out here, as you can see. And it goes back into the house on the first floor. This is what I would consider pretty awesome. And you see what they did for the light. They put a pull string out here, and it does work. I'll show you. See? We'll go on out here, go back in. All right, as we go into the little offset here, it goes into the bathroom. Now this door right here is what I want to show you and talk about a little later on in the video. We'll come up it and I'll show you. But this is another bathroom. Now this bathroom right here, I know for a fact, this whole entire wall right here, all this was completely caved in. The roof, a tree hit this roof and basically just completely flooded it. Now, in here, this all should be new wiring. You got your lights right here. Receptacle in here, as you see, there's none, which is kind of crappy because all bathrooms should have a receptacle. So where it is not on this wall. It's right there as you come in the door. That's the only receptacle in here. It used to not be, but that's unfortunate. When they fixed the wall, they didn't put a receptacle over there. I don't know why. It's just one of them things. But that's an old wire. And there's the switch. Remember this door, guys, because it's going to be pretty important. I'm going to tell you something which is pretty awesome about this. All right, we're going to head on up to the top floor. Now, I know that the top floor, same thing. Like I said, that bathroom is basically in line with where the tree hit. And what it did when the tree hit, it basically flooded the bathroom. All the sheetrock was gone. Well, actually, it was plaster. And I was in here for that. I saw that. And now, the reason why I don't want to say something and then you'd be like, what? So I need to tell you that this house right here was my father-in-law's old house. He sold it many years ago, so I know this house extremely, extremely well. I didn't want to get into a whole conversation about it, but this is the truth. This is my father-in-law's old house, so I know it like the back of my hand. So we're going to go on up here, and the top floor up here was really flooded. Actually, the tree branch kind of went this way and then kind of went around. So when it hit the bathroom over here, it also hit over here, and it flooded the top. Basically, there was nothing up there, and they redid it, and it is beautiful. So let's go on upstairs, and I'll show you guys. We'll get on up here, and we'll talk about it. Watch your head when you come up. All right, now let me show you something else up here that, like I said, about the smoke detectors, you want to make sure that they're correctly wired and they're all in place. Top of the stairs, you see there's another one. We're literally at top of the stairs. I just moved the tripod out so you can see. Now up here, this was all and not in good shape, but it's been fixed. Let me show you around here. All this should be new wiring. We'll see. All right, we want to make sure that the switch works to light, and it does. Looks like there's some, I don't know if you can see in the camera, looked like they hit something with the ceiling since I've been here last, which has been almost, I don't know, 5-6 months. Let's check out the receptacles and see if they're new. They should be, so let's see. Let's check the first one out and see if there are 2 lights, and there are. Thank goodness, right? So we don't have to put, I'm not gonna spill the beans just yet. When we go down the panel, I'll tell you about that. So this in here is all brand new wiring. As you can see, well, probably not, but there was damage. This wall was not here, so I know that all the wiring is fairly new. They have the attic access right there, and there's a scuttle hole there and right behind me. So this room is great. It's a bedroom, labeled as a bedroom. And what did I tell you about bedrooms, guys? Smoke detectors, and there's one right there. So we have one inside and out. Let's go to the next room. Now, if I was to live here, this would be my room. Let's go ahead and check out and make sure that this is new wiring also. Boom, it is. All right, so the top floor is pretty good. You have your closets and some random receptacle. Now, I think this one right here is probably gonna be an old one. Let's see if it's got 2 lights on it. It only has 1. So, no ground in that one. This is also a bedroom and smoke detector. Now see, that one is to code. It's basically a foot off the wall. And then we had the laundry area. Now, let's see if this is GFI protected. Well, it's got 2 lights, which is good. And it is GFI protected, both of them. And where is it GFI protected? Now this area here was a work area back in the day when my father-in-law owned this. So this was not even here. There was no bathroom. There was no plumbing. The only thing was up here was some baseboard heaters, the water baseboard heaters. And this is all new. This is washer and dryer is all new. That bathroom over there is all new. We're gonna go over there. I'm gonna show you what it looks like in that bathroom. Obviously it's GFI protected. Let's see if the light is. Okay, well the light's still on. Let me show you. That's good. So let's go on in here. Reset this GFI. I can't stress enough, guys, how important it is to make sure that all of your receptacles, now this whole entire bathroom here is on that receptacle that's GFI protected. And that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It all depends on how you want to wire it. Now over there is definitely back on. There's also a GFI or switch right here. Let's see if I trip that. Well, okay, that light stayed on, but it's perfect. All right, we're back in the kitchen. This is not the door I showed you upstairs. The door that I showed you upstairs is over there, which I'll show you last before we go out and look at the panel. But this right here goes down to a huge basement. Now, this is where the old knob and tubing goes and is. There is a panel. You can see the cover right there. That cover right there, I took it off and there's a bunch of wires still in there made up. So that is where the refrigerator circuit's coming from, where I showed you it needs to have a GFI, and several other little outlets. So we need to make sure that we fix this right, and I'm gonna tell you how to do it in a minute. I don't know if you can tell or not, but these steps are extremely steep. So let's get down there and talk about what's down here. It's pretty steep down these steps. Come on. God! Yeah, that right there spooked the frick out of me. I don't know if you can see the goosebumps or not. Whew, but they are, look at them. I can see them in the camera. Whew. I thought I was all alone. Damn. Whew. Hair on my neck is standing up. Yeah, that right there, whew, was something. All right, so down here, when we lived here, this was basically, it looked exactly the same, except over there was a water boiler for all the water heaters. They ran here, it was gas fired. And I know most of these receptacles down here have grounds on them. Whether they're hooked up or not, I don't know. But we're gonna find out real quick. And we're gonna wrap this video up, tell you a couple other things. I'm gonna bring you back at the end when I come back with the materials, and I'm gonna show you how to install everything. But let's go ahead and look at just a few little things real quick. Code is you need to have at least 1 receptacle and 1 switched light down here. And obviously these are potential rooms, which they're not, but they could be. I believe what I tell you about that door has to do with what's going on down here. So let's go in this first room and let's look at it and see. First thing I want to do is show you is that right there. Smoke detector down here, they're all interlinked. I've checked them all, which is excellent. I'm glad that they did this. If there's a fire here or on any other floor, that right there would alert you and let you know. Let's go into the bedroom. Now let's talk about this door. Now I'm roughly 6 foot tall. okay? And I tower over this door probably a foot, and you can see, which I'll bring you in a second, just how different it is. And I'll talk to you about this after I talk about the door upstairs. All right, so we're gonna come in here real quick, duck, obviously, quack, quack. And we're gonna make sure and look and see if any of these receptacles are good, if they have grounds, and luckily they do. I couldn't remember because I haven't been in here so long. I mean, literally, it's been a long time. There's a light in here. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it in the video, coming on, coming off. Now, everything I went ahead and checked. For him down here, everything has a ground, so we don't have to fix anything down here. But if you notice the door, like I said, it's short. So why is that? Well, I'm gonna tell you, and you're gonna be pretty, like, what? But it's pretty neat. It's a really cool story, and it's true. And we'll show you the other rooms real quick where the old boiler used to be, and we'll head up to the panel. Man, tell you what, I still got goosebumps. So even though I don't think that this house is haunted, when I lived here for about 3 years or so, I never had that feeling, but I always wondered. Now I'm talking about it, I got goosebumps. But I always wondered, you know, especially down in here. I don't know why, but I'm gonna tell you just a little bit about this. If you guys are interested, you know, you can skip on. There's, like I said, there's timestamps. But this area right here is pretty, it's old, so it's got a lot of history to it. So what I know about it is not a whole lot, but I do know a little bit, and I'm gonna show you guys over here what I'm talking about. So you can see all the new duct lines run, which is a good thing. So most everything down here has the ground on it, which I'm very thankful for. No work down here will be done, luckily. But let me show you right here in this. So this used to have a big boiler here in the ceiling here, and this was, you know, you can put hot water here and you can get, because this was a big boiler. Right over here is not the original boiler, but this is the one that was in here when I lived here. So over there in the corner is all the old cutoffs, and the pipes would go up into all the rooms, and they would all connect down to here and into this tank, and basically like an overflow for your hot water. So you never really needed a hot water heater because you had this, and that's the way it was back in the day. Now, when I lived here, we had a water heater, and there's still one here, and it's hooked up right and all that jazz, so we're not looking at that. But you definitely need to make sure when you are buying a house that you look at your water heater, make sure it's got the correct wire to it for the correct size. That's super important. You don't want to get in the house and then already have to replace the water heater, because right now, them suckers are pretty expensive. But anyway, so this area right here, I believe used to have a coal fired boiler. And over here, I'm going to show you where they actually would bring the coal in. They would take the truck or whatever, horse and buggy, whatever, and they would dump it in. And then this wall over here, which I'm going to take you in here in a second to show you, they would take the coal over here and they'd stack it over there. And then they would just bring it in here and put it over here. This is some really old wall here. It's pretty neat. So I'm going to bring you over here and show you. So I realized a lot of this video is not level because the floor, it's an old house. Especially right here, I can see it's definitely not level, but this is a very old wall, and this, I believe, used to have some kind of a little gate right here, and the coal would be stacked over here, and I'm gonna bring you over and show you that window I'm talking about. Obviously, this is closed in now, and it goes on up a little ways, and this is where they would bring the coal and put it in. That's the way I was told by the person who told my father-in-law, and this is where it basically would stay until they needed to put it in for the fireplaces or whatever. And anyway, that's that. Pretty neat. I really think this house is extremely well built. You know, it had a lot of damage, and the guys who fixed it did a pretty good job for the most part. There's a few things that they didn't do, which we're going to talk about, obviously. That's why this video is like it is. I'm sorry I got off on a little stories about, you know, this and that, but I wanted to give you some context of old houses and what you should do while you're looking. You know, you want to look at the water heaters. You want to look at the walls. You want to make sure that there's no termite damage. All the receptacles have at least the ground in it if they're not GFIs where they need to be. Just make sure everything's wired correctly, because it could cost you a lot of money in the long run if you don't take the time to physically go to every receptacle. Now, I literally went to every one of them, not on the camera before, so I kind of know where and what to fix. But it's very, very important to do that, because you don't want to be stuck with a nice house that you think just turn around and have to replace a water heater or replace a GFI that ain't working or whatever the case may be, because that can really put a damper on your home. So let's get on upstairs. I want to tell you about that door and what's cool about it. And remember, the other door I showed you, the little short door, well, I'm going to tell you something about that too, so stick around. Okay, so I'm not sure if I said it downstairs or not. I can't remember without going back to the video, but I'm just going to tell you again. Do I think this house is haunted? No, not really. I mean, obviously I said that and then all of a sudden I see those dudes downstairs, right? But this right here, this door, we didn't talk about it earlier, but what is this? Well, you open it up, and where does it go? And what is it for? I'm going to show you. Come here. I open the door and it goes up to the upstairs. But why is it so narrow? Why is it off of the kitchen? Well, let's get upstairs and I'll tell you about it. So I want to tell you that we're going to walk up these steps. All right, we're going to turn the light on. Now, there's going to be a lot of movement because this lens has no stability whatsoever. So I'm going to try to go heel to toe as much as possible. Now, you see, we have a vent line going all the way up to the attic. But that's not what I want to talk about. I'm just showing you, you need to look everywhere. See these wires in the wall here? They go to whatever, receptacles upstairs. So here's the other side of that door I was telling you about. And most all this was here when I was here. See, it's got all these shelves. We'll open it up. I mean, look at this old door thing. It's pretty cool, huh? And then we are back in the bathroom area from upstairs. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to the bathroom. I am sitting on the throne. So that doorway is what they would call a servant doorway, or servant. That door that led up to here is where the servants would walk up and down the steps to cater to the, I guess, people who are in the house or whatever. Or they called it, I think it's like a butler entry and pantryway, a butler entryway. This house is very old. I don't know the date, but I know it is old, and that hallway, stairway is very narrow. Obviously people were skinnier back then and they didn't want the people to bring them food or whatever they were doing to come up them main steps. Butlers hired help. They didn't want them to be in here. So that is the truth on that. This house is old, like I mentioned. It's got, you know, it's built extremely well. So now enough of that. I just wanted to tell you, I think that is a pretty cool thing. I like it. I think it's neat. This is a well-built house. It does need some fixing with electrical, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. We're going to go downstairs. We're going to talk about it. And then another day I'll come back and I'll put the parts and I have to order them. So let's get downstairs and check it out. All right, as you can see, this is some new wiring, obviously. It goes from the top and it goes down. This is a 200 amp service. This is an old panel. They say they used, let me show you up here, self-tappers to put the panel cover on, which is fine. I would just went ahead and got the screws for it. This is what it looks like. This was here when I was here. We're gonna take this cover off. I'm gonna show you how to fix all those non-grounding receptacles. So before we get too much further with this video, this panel is hot. Okay, I don't want you to work a panel hot ever. There's no sense in it. Now, just do what I say, not as I do. For real, because it's very important that you do not get yourself hurt, because there's no sense in that. But what we're gonna do, I'm gonna bring it down here just a little bit. So before we get going, you see this conduit right here that's been bent? I don't know if the camera shows it, but it is terrible. It is pinched. It's very terrible. I'm just gonna put it out there. It is like extremely terrible, guys. And I have a video how to bend conduit the right way. I will leave it up in the show notes or down in the description. Definitely don't do this. I also will have another video shortly about how to bend PVC conduit to make it look even better. I bought an item that I want to tell you guys about later. So definitely watch for that video coming up. Now, what we're going to do in here, and I say, please do not work the panel hot. There's no reason to at all. I'm just going to put it out there. All right. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to find each circuit which goes to all those receptacles in there. I'm gonna have to go back with a circuit tracer, and then I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna have to put a GFI breaker in here, all right? Because if not, I have to put about 47, I believe, GFIs in here. And if you buy a 3-pack for $21 and you times 3 times, you know, we need about 46 or 47 of them, by the time you spend all that money, you can just put a GFI breaker in here, fix all the problem for one shot. Now the bad part about doing it that way is if something does trip, you're gonna have to come back here to turn the breaker on and off. That's the only bad drawback about that. But, you know, if you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on GFIs, this is your option, and it works, and it will pass code because you are then making your receptacles correct. Now, why am I saying I have to put a GFI breaker in here when clearly some of the stuff is not in water areas? Now, if you change a receptacle out from a 2-prong, which they did all in here, as you can see, you can't just put a duplex receptacle. And I have a video, and you definitely need to check that one out right here. It tells all about the duplex receptacles. Please watch that. That's very important that you understand. You can't just take 2-prong receptacle and put a 3-prong in there and call it a day. You can't. It's not against, it's against code, and you can't do it. The way to do it is GFIs. I will be putting GFI breakers in here because of the simple fact that who wants to spend $12.99 times 48? You're going to be in a lot of money. Or you can spend about 60 bucks and get a GFI and fix GFI breaker and fix a lot of the problem right here. Remember, you cannot take a 2-prong receptacle and turn it into duplex without there being a ground. Now, what else I have to do? I have to put stickers on there that says no equipment ground, because that is the code. So they know when they're plugging something in, if they need that ground to be protection, that they have to have a ground. Well, there's not a ground there because there's no equipment ground, but the GFI breaker will satisfy the code and keep you safe. So now I'm gonna go back upstairs. I'm gonna come back another day with this other part of the video. We're gonna put the GFI breakers in together. Like I said, do anything at your own risk. This could be very dangerous, and I don't recommend anybody doing this unless they know what they're doing. This is only for informative purposes only. Make sure that you go through your house and you make sure that you definitely, all right, check everything, because you don't want to buy a house and already have to put a lot of money into it. Now, I know I've said this throughout the video several times, but it's just, I just want to reiterate it because some people may not have wanted to go through, you know, the whole video, and they're just now on this part. There's one other problem we have out here that I'm going to show you, which is very terrible. So first things first, this is an old service. This was here when I was here. But when I came here, I realized that 2 things have happened. First things I'm going to show you real quick is you can't have, at least in my area, a panel or a meter right here on this deck like it is, because it's, you just can't do it. Dominion Power is who we have here, and they frown upon it, and I feel like what may happen is if I start, you know, pulling the meter and getting them involved, they may say, well, you know, now you have to move it. So that could be potentially bad for the homeowner. We caught it during the inspection, and obviously they drove the price down a little bit. So let me show you how it looks, why it's on the deck here and how it's not supposed to be. You see, because when you walk down here, it's, I mean, it's literally right here on the deck. But the other problem we had, I'm gonna make sure there's no bees here first before I show you, because I am not a fan of bees like I mentioned. I don't see any, but that doesn't mean they're not here. All right, I'm gonna bring the camera down here and show you guys, because it's pretty obvious when you get down here. So right here, as you can see, it's off the wall. See how it moves? And that definitely is not a good thing. So I don't know how to approach this without getting Dominion involved, but it definitely needs to be addressed, because if it comes loose, there you are. So that's that. Okay, like I said, guys, this has been a lengthy video. I think it's been an informative one. It may not have been the most entertaining, but I think it's pretty informative. And I think that you need to make sure, like I keep reiterating over and over again, Do your homework. Get in the house that you're going to buy. Make sure, go into the house, go underneath the crawl space, go in the attic. That's what I did here. Make sure everything looks safe. All right. I will bring you back here probably a couple days after the parts come in. I will show you how to install the breakers. Like I said, informative video only. Don't do anything. If you're going to do it at your own risk. But definitely ask questions, get help, because you don't want to screw up. So I'm going to end this right here for today. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to make sure all the breakers, what breaker needs to be on a GFI and what breaker doesn't need to be. And then you don't need to see that because we already went through it all. But smoke detectors is a must. That's your safety. If your house catches on fire, you want to make sure you can get the hell out. Another thing I want to say is if you're upstairs, like this house, when I lived here, I bought one of those ladders you throw out, like a kiddie ladder. And I'll leave a link down below, the one that I bought. I highly recommend, if you're even on the second floor, get a ladder. Because if you had to get out from the top floor and there's no ladder, because everything else is on fire, well, you're going to be jumping, 3 floors. That's like 30 feet, so maybe something like that. Could be more, depends, if you're on a hillside. Get a ladder, all right? Get fire extinguishers. I'm going to leave links to all this stuff down below, guys. I just can't stress enough. When I bought my house, smoke detectors was the main thing. Didn't have them, I drove the price down. I put them in. Fire extinguishers and the ladder. I have a 2-story house also. I'm going to see you back here in a couple days. All right, we are back. And it's probably been about 3 days, thanks to Amazon and work, of course. So what I'm going to do is I bought these off Amazon. Now, my local supply house, let's see if I can get these things to focus. My local supply house had these for $125 a piece. And I mean, it makes no sense to spend that when you can get it on Amazon. You had to wait, but anyway, that's what we did. I went ahead and got it on Amazon because I just won't have to pay that price. What we're going to do is we're going to replace these in the circuits and see if the GFI breaker will work, which it should. It will not trip, but it will satisfy the code, so keep that in mind. It will trip if there's an issue, of course, but if you go to plug your tester in here, it will not trip. So there's absolutely no reason, guys, for us to work this hot. So the best thing to do is always turn your breaker off. All right, it's just the best route to go. That way you don't have to worry about anything, and you don't have to worry about touching anything wrong. Now, of course, the top side will be hot, but at least we know that we're safe down here. There's no sense in working anything hot if you don't have to. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I put a wider lens on so we can see more of the work. All right, so we know that what I wrote down here was 9, 11, 13, and 10 for the breakers that needed to be changed out to GFI breakers. All right, so let's start. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. We're gonna start with this one first. We're gonna put it in. All right. We know that the power is off. You definitely want to check with a meter to make sure that it is off after. You definitely need to double check, guys, and make sure. It only takes a second to get hurt and a lifetime to get over it. So let's put the GFI breaker in. All right, so if you don't know how to put a GFI breaker in, I'm just going to give you a very quick rundown. This is the neutral. This goes to the neutral bar. Your neutral from your Romex goes into this spot right here. If you don't know how to do that, it also says it right here. Panel, load, neutral, load, hot. Okay? So it's pretty cut and dry for the most part. So we're gonna wind this a little bit. Now, you really can't do a whole lot to this panel because it's, well, you see what kind of position we're in. So we're gonna put one in. I'm gonna put all the rest of them in after. I'm gonna put this one in on camera, and then the rest of them I'm gonna do off camera, and then we'll finish this video out because there's no sense in watching me do 4 breakers. But anyway, let's start with this one. All right, actually, what I like to do, honestly, is to go ahead and I pre-did my neutral here. This is to the panel here. As you can see, it goes right up here. So what we need to do is we need to find this neutral on the bus bar. It's very important you get the right one. Take your time and find it. Alright, let's see. What I like to do is pull both ways. That's definitely it. Alright, so we know that it is in this piece of Romex right here, and there. In case you didn't know, I did some of this off camera just so there wouldn't be any issues, but I did forget which neutral it was, but I pulled it. With the neutral out, we'll go ahead and we will land it on our silver screw. See, let me see, make sure you can see. If you can see close here, this is a silver screw and the top one's brass. So let's go ahead and put it in here. And we're gonna test it before, turn it on, make sure everything holds. And once it does, like I said, I will go off camera and I will make all the joints up, all the other breakers off camera. Because like I said, you don't need to see me do this on 4 breakers. Now, if you're gonna do that like I'm doing, making the breakers up out of the panel like I'm doing, when you put it back into the spot where it goes, you need to double check. So you need to double check and make sure that you are tight, because I'm just kind of snugging it up. There we go. Kind of snugging it up, and then once we get it in, I will crank it down the rest of the way. Alright. And we'll take this neutral that I told you I had from the panel, and we'll strip it out. We're going to put it together. Now I'm going to clean this up here before we come back and finish the video, obviously. So we'll turn the main back on, and we'll turn this back on. Alright, good enough. We'll make sure she trips, and it trips here, so we know that everything's in good state, the panel's hot. Now, I'm going to finish this video part out, and I'll be back, and we'll finish up. I'll show you how it looks when it's all said and done. Okay, something else I want to stress while I'm in here is it's very good to go over your panel, turn your main breaker off. If you have a disconnect, turn your disconnect off. Make sure you're dead. Go down every single screw and make sure that they're good and tight. Now, another thing that I did, and these are 30 amp breakers. There's no reason for a single 30 to be in here. Now, there are reasons for them, but not typically in a panel like this, especially not on a 12 gauge or a 14 gauge wire. So I'm changing all these out to a 20, as you can maybe see or not. I'm not gonna, it got the wire on it now, but yeah, these are definitely 30s, as you can probably see in the video here. And no count. Almost every single wire that I've touched pretty much in here has been pretty well loose. Now the good ones were the stove, the water heater, hot water heater, and a few whatever they are in here. But for the most part, you definitely need to check the tightness of the screws, neutrals, grounds, and hots, and make sure that the breakers match the wires. It's the best you can do, so highly recommend doing that, because if not, you don't want to be that person that has something go wrong, and then you're like, oh man, I knew I should have turned that 30 into a 20 or a 15 or whatever. So anyway, definitely make sure that you match your wires to your breaker. All right, we're done. Everything is buttoned up. Well, made up as best I can. Now, it's kind of hard. You just see this panel here. I don't know if you can see or not, but let me show you. It's kind of hard to make everything look pretty. See that little spot on my head where I was wearing that flashlight on my head so I could do these GFI breakers and such. But anyway, one thing I need to tell you guys is this. We didn't talk about that door downstairs. I said I would come back later and tell you. So the reason why I've seen those doors being so short, and you guys may already know, people back in those days were just not as tall, so 2 and 2 makes 4, right? And I also was told through I can't remember if I was on a trip going through one of those like Thomas Jefferson's houses or Monticello or somewhere. I think maybe Jamestown, I can't remember where it was, but there was a question from somebody in the crowd. The guy who was doing the tour didn't know, but same thing, why is the door so short? And he told us, the guy in the tour told us, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they didn't want to make the doors as tall because it cost more, or it was more lumber for them to use for servants or whatever they were using them for at that time, and they didn't want to waste the wood on them. So I don't know, you guys leave me a comment down below and let me know if that's it. If this content, guys, has given you value, please make sure that you smash that thumbs up, guys. It does help this video. It does help my channel grow. Lots of things are in the works for this upcoming year, like I mentioned. I think, you know, if you stick around long enough, you're going to see this is going to be turning into nothing but electrical channel. But I have some more exciting news later on down the road, just not right yet. So I hope you've learned something here, especially if you made it this far. If you guys don't want to see how to wire up a panel, there'll be a video coming up very shortly on the side of me. You guys can click on that and I'll see you there. If you want to see what happens next, make sure you like and subscribe. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.